Ahoy there folks, I'm Captain Benzie and welcome to the second part of the Eve Echoes Industrial Update Developer Discord AMA. That's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? Basically, the developers have been hosting AMAs on Discord recently. They did one yesterday that was live at 1100 UTC, and they did one this morning that was live at 0300 UTC. I was in yesterday's one, I asked some questions, we got a load of really cool answers about the industrial update that's coming in late May. If you haven't watched that video, I would recommend watching that one first, as my opinions and voices and stuff that I'm going to add to this are likely going to reference some of the questions that were asked and answered yesterday, so it's worth watching that one first. I'll put a link at the end of the video in the description and hopefully at the top of the page now if I remember, so watch that one first, then come back and check this one. Today's one, as I said, was at 0500 hours this morning for me, CAT 0300 UTC. I wasn't in this one myself, but I have gone through, read the questions and the answers, the ones that they chose to respond to, and there's a lot of interesting information in this one. I'm just going to say, as usual, if you enjoy this video, please hit like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, make sure that you do ding that notification bell, and of course, if you want to go the extra mile to support me, I do have a Patreon page and a Redbubble merchandise store. Anyway, all that said and done, I am still dying of man flu, so we're just going to jump straight into this one, and I apologise for my voice and if I cough or anything crazy starts happening. So first question then, from Table Flip. Will the Venture 4 fit mining drones? This was a question I asked yesterday when they announced that yes, mining drones were coming, and not just to the Rorqual, but to the smaller ships as well. Now Lance says, I'm afraid not, mining drones need a large size slot. This is something that does actually disappoint me quite a lot. I really think that the Ventures should be able to use mining drones as well. It kind of sucks that they can't. It just makes them even worse comparatively to the mining barges, which, considering there is a Tech 10, the Venture 4, it just... Have you ever seen anyone actually seriously fly the Venture 4? I know there are some people who do for things like Nihilus compressed space and stuff like that, but it's just a ship that is so ridiculously niche because it's just bad. It's just bad compared to running like a Coveted 2 and stuff like that. Anyway, let's move on. We'll come back to that one sort of later on. HR department asks, after the industry balance is deployed, what goals does the development team have for quality of life improvements for industrial players? This is a worrying response. Mike Lee says, we hope to give players a new experience by providing more industrial ships, especially the capital ship, the Rorqual. At the same time, it will also increase players' demand for minerals and ores through corp buildings and more capital ships in the future. This is worrying to me for one simple reason. Adding more industrial ships and thus the ability to harvest more ore devalues said ore unless you have a meaningful way to actually spend it. Now, ultimately, what they're saying here is we're not adding anything that will help you spend that ore currently, other than the Rorqual itself. But once you've got the Rorqual, from what they've said, the fact that it's basically going to be the equivalent of 20 Covetors, it looks like it's going to make itself back pretty quickly in regards to sort of like how you would harvest the ores. The ores that you've used to build a Rorqual, it looks like you will earn those back pretty quickly using said Rorqual. So it's more of a roadblock than an actual sink. They're saying that in the future, however, don't worry, we've got you covered, folks. We're going to add more corp buildings, which you'll build once and then be done with, and more capital ships, which you'll build once and then be done with. Now, the more capital ships in itself is also pretty worrying for one simple reason. There aren't many capital ships left before we start looking at super capitals, and the capital ships we already have are pretty niche in their uses. Like, you can argue that there's not really much point in the current capitals. I say you could argue, I have argued. The only content that capitals are worth having for is the content that capitals themselves have created. Like, literally, the only reason to have a carrier for PvE is to do the SRPs and the SFRP, fleet rally points and special fleet rally points. But those only exist because the capitals exist, if that makes sense. Like, you're only having to use capitals because they added capitals. If they hadn't added capitals, then you wouldn't need that and would just still be ratting tier 10s and Inquisitor Scouts and Dead Spacers and stuff like that. And yeah, okay, what's the point in a Dreadnought? The point of a Dreadnought is to blap carriers. That's pretty much it, because we were doing fine with strikers in sieges and things before to take out citadels. Dreadnoughts basically exist to blap carriers, so they only exist because capitals were added. Capitals literally only do anything because capitals were added, if that makes any form of sense. There's no real need for them. There's no special content for them other than just, yeah. So, and they're ISK printing machines. Like, you build a carrier and then it just prints ISK. It'll make its cost back eventually, and then you just kind of keep going because you just don't ever risk it or anything, right? So you kind of get what I'm saying here, that there's not much need for capital ships, and there aren't really many left. There are literally 4 more Empire capital ships, the 4 Force Auxiliaries, which are basically capital-sized logistics vessels, and then there are the pirate capitals, like the Chemosh, which is a Blood Raider capital, and things like this. So there's really not that much left, and once people have built those, what next? You've still got the Rorqual, you've still got the Orca, you've still got all this stuff that is going to be just generating ore, but everyone's pretty much built the capitals they need at that point, right? So they're just going to keep adding more stuff. Like, then they're going to add super capitals like super carriers and titans just because. Like, adding these big ships for the purposes of trying to fix industry feels like a really messed up, backwards, idiotic way of doing this, and I cannot say that clearly enough. Like, you are admitting that you're going to break industry by doing this. Mining is going to just... It's no longer a race to a bottom. It's now a complete free fall who can hit the ground first. And just... They're admitting that their only way of solving this is by adding new stuff in the future that is basically going to be build it once and then you're done for the most part. That doesn't help. That does not fix the issue. That, at the very best, delays the issue. That's like saying to someone, oh yeah, we can see that the gangrene's creeping up your body, but we're just going to cut the toes off for the time being. When it reaches the knee, we'll come back and do that. But you're not solving the issue. You're just kind of, or just heck, just giving them painkillers even, basically. You're not solving the issue. You are just letting the rot grow in the understanding that maybe in a year or two's time, when people are starting to just go, look, proper full-on re-screaming, then we'll fix it. I'm worried about that one. Anyway, let's move on. Another one of my questions would be, how similar should EVE Echoes become to EVE Online, asks Missing Number. This is a really weird question. Lance says, at present the development plans of Echoes and EVE Online are independent of each other, so there's no strict system to ensure that the detailed design and new content of the two games will be exactly the same. They are separate universes. The background of the game of Echoes is literally that this entire, parallel universe came out of the Caroline Star explosion, something that I will probably do a video on at some point in the future. Some people have asked for lore. If you want to see lore videos from me, please comment down below. I'm worried to do it because it's one of those things that requires a lot of effort, and I'm worried it's going to be pretty niche, but if enough people want them, I'll do them. Anyway, however, the future development directions of EVE Echoes and EVE Online are similar because 1, we have the same design concept, and 2, we'll communicate and share regularly and learn from each other's valuable experience. This is good to hear, and I've clarified on this that yes, NetEase are still in talks with CCP. They do still communicate. They bounce ideas off each other back and forth. And that the same is true. EVE Echoes is teaching EVE Online some things, just as EVE Echoes is learning from EVE Online. It's a really cool relationship, and I'm glad that that is still going on. Obviously, there are going to be similarities. It's set in basically the same universe with the same backdrop. We've just got different ways of doing things. Now, the question would be, how similar are they going to be at the end? I mean, look, heck, if we added every single ship that's in the EVE Online tree, or an EVE Echoes equivalent thereof, then you added all the things like abyssal dead spaces and ice and gas mining, you're still going to have all the differences of things like how fitting works and how different mechanics in the game actually work. And you know what? These should be 2 different games. I like that scanning is different in EVE Online as it is to EVE Echoes. I can look at EVE Online and say, yes, actually, we would really benefit from having something like abyssal dead spaces added to the game. Those would be awesome because they're 20 minutes guaranteed content in a mobile game. It gives that pick up and play feeling. It also gives PvE content, meaningful PvE content, to people who want to specialise into frigates, destroyers and cruisers, something that is sadly missing. If you want to focus on PvE right now, it's basically go big or go home. So we can look at EVE Online and say this would be a really cool thing to add because it's useful. I think looking at EVE Online and saying we should add this just because it's in EVE Online that's bad design. That's the equivalent of saying I think a Vindicator should have bigger, better webs just because my brain tells me so. So I don't think you should look at EVE Online and say, oh, I think Echoes needs this just because it's in EVE Online. I think you should look at what Echoes needs, look at EVE Online as inspiration, and then add something meaningful and hopefully new to that. I think that's the better way of doing it. Hello developers, says Leo. First off, thank you for everything you do. Honoured to be a part of the community you've created with your... they're talking about here the new industrial ships and how they correspond to skills. There's a lot of background to this one. So anyway, the new industrial capital corresponds to the new skill. The original industrial skills will not have a bonus to industrial capitals, and the new industrial skills will not have a bonus to the original industrial ships. This means that whereas we've had industrial ship, and we're now going to have industrial capital ship command, industrial capital engineering, industrial capital defense, that kind of thing, like we did with the standard capitals. You don't get bonuses to like your defense in a dreadnought from getting battleship command, for example, or battleship defense upgrade. So we are getting a whole new load of skills that will work with the industrial capitals. Cool. I would like to ask, says Cirrus Demi, if manufactured consumables will be added at some point. These could include ammunition, and he lists several other things as well, and I am wholeheartedly on board with this. I did an entire video about why ammunition would be one of the greatest things that could be added to EVE Echoes. Now, I would ultimately like to see it almost a direct one-for-one, give us ammunition, but also have it so that you don't have to have ammunition. Ammunition is purely optional. If you don't have ammunition fitted, or you run out of ammunition, for example, your weapon just goes back to what it currently is. If you open up your game now and have a look at what your weapon stats are, that would be the weapon without ammunition. Ammunition would do things like additional optimal range, but at a cost of tracking, or changing the damage type. So having, for example, lasers that do more in electromagnetic and less in thermal, or more in thermal and less in electromagnetic, longer ranges, shorter ranges, better tracking, less tracking, that kind of thing. Go watch that video if you're interested to find out more about ammunition. Now, Lance.here here says, thank you for your rational analysis. The recycling of items is very important, not only for industrial players, but also for the health of the game. Thank you for acknowledging this. He did acknowledge this yesterday and say that adding consumption to the game was important to them. They have come to realise this, that actually just flooding the market over and over with stuff doesn't do the game any good. You just get this accumulation of stuff, and when it accumulates again, the supply is there and the demand is outstripped. Bigger supply, lower demand means lower prices. It just means we get backed up. It's so easy to get C-types onto ships these days. Like once you're hitting like Tech 7, Tech 8, it's pretty easy to fully C-type and Meta 8 your entire ship. If you're dedicating yourself to a ship, you're easily going to be able to get those C-types on there with just a little bit of grinding. Which means, what's the point in like Republic Fleet and stuff like that at that point? Who uses Meta 8 cannons, or Meta 5 cannons even? Like, what's the point in them? Anyway, we're also currently exploring new recycling mechanics that are friendly to all players, but there's no concrete plan to share with you yet. I cannot be very responsible to say that there will be related updates and adjustments from the second half of the year. I cannot be very responsible to say there'll be very related updates and adjustments in the second half of the year. I think what he's trying to say is that the second half of the year will contain updates. He's going to be like able to say that yes, there will be related updates and adjustments. I'll get some clarity on that. It's a Google Translate issue on that one there, I think. Ultimately, I've said this before, I think things like ammunition would be really good in general, but I also think that insurance should create buy orders for all the modules that are dropped, because then it's going to consume some of those C-type modules. It's not just making new ones, and thus no one ever needs to get new ones off the market. There needs to be this whole thing of when a ship gets destroyed, it does need to lose some things. The idea of insurance giving you the ship back instantly is fine, as long as it destroys another equivalent ship elsewhere. The issue has been with insurance that it doesn't destroy another ship elsewhere because the buy orders just aren't worth fulfilling. But at the same time, it is giving you all of your weaponry back. It gives you all of your modules back. If you're able to recover your wreckage, you can, when you destroy your ship, anything that your ship dropped, if you're able to get that, then when you go back and do the insurance, the entire ship with all of its fittings is right there. Now, there are two ways you can fix that. Either have insurance not include the fittings and just be hull only. I don't think that's going to work because, as they mentioned yesterday, the entire purpose of the insurance system being the way it is to help combat players back into the fight. And you can sit there and say, oh yeah, but wouldn't it be better if, wouldn't it be better if? That's their design intent. That is what they want to do with this. So you can argue until you're blue in the face, till the cows come home, whatever other analogy you want to use there, whatever other apophism. Essentially, when it comes down to it, you're gonna be just arguing against a brick wall. Work with them. If they're going to say that, no, we're making sure that we're going to give you everything you need to get back into the game as quickly as possible using insurance, then fine, go for it. Just destroy it elsewhere. Make so that the insurance system destroys stuff. It creates buy orders for all of the weaponry, the Nosferatus, the rigs, things like that from the market. That would be healthy. Missing number again. Well, the devs like answering his questions. Thank you very much, sir, for answering my question yesterday. Since I have to leave for exams, he's here by asking some questions about, like, what are they going to do? He asked yesterday regarding are they going to update graphics and sound effects and visuals and stuff like that? And he's now basically asking for clarity and more information on that. Mike Lee responds, we're always working on improving the quality of the game, including adding new music and new storyline missions and encounters. Please look forward to, oh goodness, please, we need more encounters and storylines. And when I say we need more, I don't just mean, oh, it's Bad Hair Day, but with slightly different ads and different text that happens at the start. I mean, no, you need to actually do stuff. Like, oh, this one, you actually have to go and blow up a mining installation. Or this one, you have to, just have something meaningful, have something different that's not just fly to A, kill everything and then get on with your life. That's boring. It's why PvE is becoming so, like, people want to automate PvE basically because it's not engaging. You fly to point A, you go from point A to point B, you destroy everything, you go from point B to point C, destroy everything, and whoa, mission done. Wow, so engaging, right? Number 2, we have no plans to adjust the ore acquisition method and exploration gameplay for the time being. This was in response to Missing Number asking, will you ever be able to earn ore using in-game currency? They say flat out no, which is a good thing, and I know some people are going to be like, what? Yes, the game needs to make money, and you need to entice players to actually use money from time to time. Now, ultimately, the fact that the Omega can be earned with ISK is awesome. You can get everything that you need in this game completely for free. It is possible to play this game totally 100% free to play and have full access to everything that is meaningful. The fact that some things are available only through Aurum is designed to make sure that the devs do actually get some cold hard cash come through and that it's not just earned through Plex. That is a key point, and it's not a comfortable truth for many people, but that's how it works. If something is in Aurum, it is designed specifically for players who have a bit more disposable income to actually pay and support the game. That needs to be there. You cannot run something entirely with the possibility of it being completely 100% free. Number 3, thanks for your suggestions. Improving the playability of the game is always the number one priority for us. He gave some cool stuff there like exploration, could they do this, could they do that? They've basically said, cool, thank you for the suggestions. Now this one, I'm going to actually give the full question here because Bubo Capensis is one of the guys I talk to a lot in my comment section regarding industry, and he has some really solid ideas. I've talked to him a lot, I've run those same suggestions past other players who have gone, actually, yeah, that's really interesting, that's really cool. And so this one I wanted to show the full question before the response, because also the response uses numbers and just, yeah. So, for my second question, I would like to know how much ore hold space the Rorqual and Orca are going to have. Lance says this is the current version of the information, but please refer to the official announcement. Basically, subject to change. Rorqual will have 300,000 cubic meters of ore hold. The Orca will have 150,000 cubic meters. Jesus H. Christ. Will the Rorqual and Orca have bonuses to tractor beams like in EVE Online? No bonus for tractor beam, just major in mining, different from Trello. Sorry for that. They've confirmed the mobile tractor unit that was on Trello was an accident. That was not supposed to be there. Oops. Will the Rorqual have ore compression, and how will it work? Yes, it has a new module which will help itself or its fleet members compressing the ore in their ore hold. Interesting. So you're going to be able to not only have 300,000 cubic meters of ore hold, you're actually going to be able to compress the ore into that. So that 300,000 is considerably more than that. Will the Orca and Rorqual have ship maintenance bays and flight hangars like they do in EVE Online? No, thank you. Will the Orca have the ship fitting service? Also no. Again, I'm all for these not having these. We don't go far enough from stations really to warrant all of that. We don't have the same nullsec dangers in EVE Echoes as we do in EVE Online. These ships don't need those systems. They wouldn't add anything meaningful to the game. I'm actually okay with that. We don't ask about the panic button here, but I think that gets covered later if I remember. Smooth Water. I know insurance is mostly working the way it's intended to get PvP and PvE players into the game faster. How about changes yada yada yada, he asks. Lance.says, says, strictly speaking, the reason why the goods don't sell well is not insurance. Even if there's no insurance, when safe farming players are the majority and players willing to risk blowing up their ships become a minority, it will eventually lead to oversupply. That's exactly what we had before scanning. Before scanning, everyone sat in high sec and low sec, and low sec was completely freaking safe from everyone. So you just sat there and you gathered and you gathered and you gathered, and a lot of what we still have on the market is stuff that was just created by people who literally ran Bad Hair Day all day, every day. The profits you made from Bad Hair Day would buy you a load more stuff that you then just go into Bad Hair Day and make more money with, and you could just run that ad infinitum and never have to worry about it. Obviously, by changing that and making that risky, you're blowing up ships, and when a ship gets blown up, even if it's brought back with insurance, you are still adding stuff to the market, players do still need to buy new stuff, and ultimately not everyone does have full insurance on all their ships. Also, you pushed people from low sec into null sec, for a period at least, where they went ratting in nullsec, doing things like slower, lower level Inquisitor Scout anomalies, like seeing a Tech 8 player running Tier 6 Inquisitors and Scouts on their own to get ISK. You watch people do things like SFRPs, FRPs, that kind of things. They're in nullsec, they are in a dangerous situation where they could theoretically lose that ship, and I see enough low-sec pirates, people like Lord Cobra for example, putting up kill mails of this kind of stuff, that there are ships being destroyed thanks to this, which is an important point. This is EVE, people need to be losing their ships. If you're not losing your ships, nothing gets destroyed, which means it is pure creation, which then causes inflation and problems on the market. So, this to me means you guys need to really be looking at those high-sec islands, like, really need to be looking at them, because the fact that those are completely safe and are actually making very good ISK is a concern, because now people will just go completely into those, and thus players willing to risk losing their ships have become a minority. Anyway, moving on, we will take the issue of output recycling very seriously, and there will be new content to service this. It's just that we don't think insurance is the main cause of this problem so far. We'll not expand the issue of insurance here, I hope you understand. Now, I don't think, I'm aware immediately, as soon as Lance.has said that, there are people reading this and watching this who are going to be like, oh, you don't think insurance is the main cause? You don't think insurance is the main cause? Well, I do, and getting angry about it. And the simple point is, that doesn't necessarily matter. If we can fix this without needing to change insurance, then awesome. Like, screw it. If they're going to come up with a system that can actually recycle these kind of things and destroy stuff off the market and consume it elsewhere that isn't going to play with insurance, that's fine. It's still the same solving, right? You don't have to make insurance the bad guy. You've just got to understand that the problem is stuff doesn't get consumed. So if we have ways to consume stuff, then suddenly it does. I've said before, I would love it if making B-type modules consumed C-types. If you needed to use 10 or 100 C-type modules to make a B-type and then 10 or 100 B-types to make an A-type, you suddenly, just make it 10. If you make it 10 C-types to make a B-type, then every single B-type small pulse laser has consumed 10 C-type small pulse lasers. And considering my succubus needs 3 of those, I have consumed 30 small C-type pulse lasers. Then, once I have got B-type lasers, if I decide I want A-types, I need to consume 10 B-types. So for every time to make it up to the full 3 A-type small pulse lasers, I'm going to have used 30 B-types, and those 30 B-types are going to be worth however many that is, multiplied out again, 300 I think that works out to, 300 C-types. So now 300 C-types have been taken off the market to make me 3 A-types. And again, if we now go up to X-types, to make those 3 X-types, I need to consume 30 A-types. Those 30 A-types are going to have cost me 300 B-types, and that in total is going to have cost me 3,000 C-types. Do you see where I'm going here? Suddenly, the ability to have X-types on your ship is consuming all of the lower level modules, which increases the demand for them and reduces the supply. Isn't that the entire point here? So fingers crossed, it could be something like that. We don't know. It doesn't have to be insurance they fix. Insurance definitely is a cause of the problem. They're just saying here we don't think it's the main cause, that we think there are ways to change this without doing that. So good luck to them. I'd like to see where that goes. Leo asks, with the new cosmic anomalies that will be added to get the Rex for the new industrial ships, will they be everywhere in New Eden or only in certain points? Lancelot confirms they will be in everywhere in New Eden. We saw yesterday actually they will be available in high sec, low sec and null sec, but the combat NPCs will be different according to the region. So obviously you'll have like a Guristus version, Serpentis version, Sancha, Blood Raider and Angel. Volpone asks, thank you in advance for taking the time to answer this question. Will anything be done to increase, I think this is to do with yields and making sure that miners aren't suddenly left out in the cold when other people are sweeping all their belts off. Mike Lee says, we've increased the refresh rate of mining belts and occasionally there will be some surprises in some mining belts to provide a different experience for industrial players. Now, as much as I would love that surprise to be belt rats, because they have mentioned that they would like to make it so that AFK miners are punished a bit more, and that active miners get on with things a bit more and are able to earn more, belt rats would be a really interesting way of doing that. You have to make sure that your fleet is actually paying attention, so they can either call in support, or they can all swap from their mining drones to their combat drones in order to take out those rats, then go back to mining. To me, that's a really interesting way of doing it. Unfortunately, I don't think that's what they're going for here. I think what they're going to be doing is that, oh yeah, while you're mining, occasionally, as you're mining, it'll spawn like a compressed belt, or at least compressed asteroids and nice surprises like that to provide a different, quote-unquote, experience for industrial players. I don't know. I really think belt rats is the way forward at this point. I've been kind of against belt rats for a while, just because, like the developers, I think, I've been scared of the outcry that miners would give. But the fact that the developers themselves have said, we don't want people just AFK mining the entire time. Yes, we want it to be more chill than, like, ratting and PvP, but we don't want you to just be able to put your phone down, walk off, do something else, come back, and be done with it. Belt rats is a good way of doing that, and if you think when I say belt rats I mean like, oh, there's an entire fleet going to drop into your mining belt, that's not what belt rats are. We'll talk about this more in a video, but essentially I'm just talking about having the occasional small ship show up and harass miners. The miners should be able to deal with it, but you need to at least be paying attention to your ship to make sure that you are capable of dealing with it. Daybreak 14, what will the skill bonuses be for the Noctis? Lance says, expert industrial ship command bonuses, its auto looting range. Expert industrial ship defense upgrade bonuses, its cargo hold. Interesting to see that these are using expert. This makes basically the Noctis and the tier 10 stealth bombers the only ships in the game that actually use expert skills, which means suddenly if you want to use these, you're going to have to go all the way up to expert 5 on industrial ship command and expert 5 industrial ship defense, which is quite an insane ask if I do dare say so. It doesn't get asked here as well, but I would hope they're making those auto looters, the auto salvagers, a bit more readily available, and I'm hoping that they're going to make those skills readily available as well. I think that if you were, willing to spend 15 billion Hyquex on buying auto salvagers and the skills for them, you've been able to benefit from those for like a couple of months now, month and a half? Can't remember exactly how long it's been. You've been able to benefit all that time for it. It's time to make it so that the skills are just in the skill book and we can all get access to them so that we can start using these modules ourselves, I think. Age-Loha. Crikey, try saying that with man flu. Can you please focus some resources to fix the local window? It should remember my settings instead of resetting it to the default every time I jump. Yeah, I agree. They're well aware of the problem. Crying out loud. Why do people insist on, asking these questions over and over again? I get that it's a problem. Believe me, I know that it's a problem. I play the game. Honest. Thanks for the feedback. We fixed this problem in the internal servers and we'll release the changes in the next few versions. Like, the devs have confirmed that they know this is a problem beforehand. This feels like the whole black screen issue. It's just the thing that people complain about. I get that it's a problem. I'm not trying to belittle the problem. Just every week, every Wednesday, the community Discord at server maintenance gets flooded with people going, are they fixing local? Are they fixing this? Are they fixing that? It's like, is it in the patch notes? And they've gone, no. And it's like, well, probably not then. Oh, why haven't they fixing it? Why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they doing that? It's like, calm down. there is a certain amount of development time and resources they can put on this. Even if they put the entire team on it, doesn't guarantee they're going to be able to do it in a week. Bugs are difficult things. If you've ever known a game developer, especially someone who works in something like QA or, the dev engineering side of things, you can know that, literally, I used to play a game called Armorjet where there was a point where people putting emojis in the chat caused the game to speed up. How are those two systems even linked? But it did. These things happened. So, I don't know, it's just... You've got to understand that in game development, bugs happen, and they are fixed when they are fixed. Rushing them and constantly badgering on about them does no one any favours. Third Eyes, will there ever be a hacking minigame? Exploration doesn't feel good without any wormholes or minigame, in my opinion. I kind of get that. It doesn't feel overly engaging without the minigame, I will agree. Wormholes are a whole different story. My goodness, that's not just a content update, that's a humongous thing. And I think a lot of people, I'm not accusing Third Eyes of being one of these people, by the way, if you're watching. I'm saying I think a lot of people who ask for wormholes don't actually even understand how big they are in EVE Online, how much of a system this really, really is. And some people just don't engage with that system because it is big, it is scary, and it can be very, very confusing. Heck, watch Clear Skies and just see how the team there reacts to a wormhole. Anyway, so Lance.Dot says, very good suggestion, we will start this topic in future discussions. Now, I'm actually going to jump in here because I think Google Translate here doesn't do Lance.Dot any favours, because they did confirm previously the hacking minigame is on the development plan. It is coming eventually. I've spoken to Cloud recently who confirmed it is on the list. It's a big thing to add, and they've got other stuff they want to do first. And I kind of get it. I get it. Exploration is working. It's functional. I'm not going to say it's engaging. I don't think it's engaging. But it's working. It's functional. There are other things they need to fix and or add first before they go to exploration. I think as well there's a little bit of the back end of the sword on this one, in that because exploration isn't engaging, people try it and then drop out, and therefore not a lot of people are doing exploration. So when the devs say, well, exploration needs fixes, and then they look at how many people are doing exploration, it's it's a big thing to do, and it's not going to benefit all that many people. It's only a small community of people who will actually benefit from us fixing this thing, therefore we're going to put it further down the line. And it's well, it's only a small community because it's broken and people aren't engaging with it. If you made it engaging, more people will do it, I reckon. But hey, again, that's me literally sucking my thumb and holding it to the wind and saying, oh yeah, if build it and they will come, like it's Field of Dreams or something. I don't know, that's showing my age. Oh man, move on. A long time ago, we were promised structures to increase the number of capture outpost slots in the systems. When are these coming? What other kinds of things can we wait for? Mike Lee says, first of all, the attributes provided by... they talk about nanocores further in here as well. Sorry, this question I've remembered. Where he says, do you think nanocores are beginning to cause power creep and sort of a pay-to-win aspect? And this kind of tilts me a little bit. I'm not going to use the word trigger because I believe that word is grossly misused as someone who knows people who suffer with PTSD. Rant for another day, Benzie. Ultimately, I get tilted by this whole thing of pay to win in EVE Echoes, because the first thing I need to know is, how do you win at EVE Echoes? There's a joke in the EVE community that the only way to win at EVE is quitting. That is how you win at EVE. So when someone says, oh, I'm leaving, it's congratulations, you won EVE. There is no way to win. You can sit there and say, oh, in a one versus one duel, when we've got the exact same skills, the exact same fit, and the exact same ships, the person with the better nanocore wins. It's well, yes, but when does that happen? When does that ever happen? I don't think I've ever seen that naturally occur, and it never will in a game like EVE. EVE is asymmetrical. In a direct combat situation, people will have different fits, different skills, different freaking tactics even. Heck, you'll often find that people are solo roaming and then bam, you're against a fleet. That's the point of EVE. It's not about fair, it's about fun. And that's a key point I think a lot of people need to get, but hey. So first of all, says Mike Lee, the attributes provided by nanocores currently only account for a very small part. Absolutely true. Open up something like a Harbinger or a Hurricane and have a look at, let's say, the 18.8% that you'll get to cannon damage. How much damage does the ship hull get as a bonus? Like, it's usually more than that. Like, you'll see that ships give you things like 25%, 50%, 80% additional damage. Look at the Drumiel, for crying out loud. Drumiel, off the top of my head, recently got buffed to being 14% extra damage per level. That's what, 70% increase across the board once you fully train it out? 10 times 5 is 50, 5 times 4 is 20. So yeah, 70% increase. God, I'm bad at maths when I'm ill. 70% increase across the board. How much does a nanocore add to that? 18% tops? Like, yeah, they do. It's a small increase. It's a small increase overall. In comparison, the attributes provided by the players' ships, equipment, and skills are significantly higher than those provided by nanocores. Secondly, we provide players with many ways to obtain nanocores and its upgrade materials for free in the game, such as blueprints and events, which is absolutely true. We hope to balance the experience of paying players and free players, and we're carefully grasping the boundaries of payment, hope that players can understand. It's a key point here. I was talking to someone on the official Echoes community recently about this, who was saying, oh, nanocores are pay to win, because anyone who can afford to get the Concord Pass each month is able to get 2 nanocores out of it every month. I can only get 1. Excuse me. And that's missing the point. Because now you're saying, oh, that person's got 2 ships that have nanocores, I've only got 1, that's pay to win. No, it's not, because they can't fly both of those ships at the same time. Like, they've got more options than you, but they physically can't, like, outnumber you because they can still only fly one of those ships. Or what if they're a multi-boxer? That's multiple accounts! That's the same as having 2 players. Anytime someone complains about multi-boxing, what you are essentially saying is, this person is simulating having friends, and I just don't have friends, therefore it's unfair. You can easily replicate what a multi-boxer is doing by having friends in the game. Like when someone says, oh, it's unfair that so-and-so, you know, this player here has 5 accounts that they use in combat. They fly around with 5 ships at once. That's not fair because I'm only 1 ship. Well, yeah, get 4 friends and you've got the same thing. Like, this is an MMO. That's kind of the point. I think you could be actually uncharitable and say that ultimately multi-boxers are compensating for having no friends by having multiple accounts. That's a really rude way of saying it, and I don't genuinely believe that. I know plenty of multi-boxers, and every single multi-boxer I've met in this game is probably one of the better people in the community. They are all the friendly ones. They're the ones who want to help out. They're the ones who donate as much as they can to corporation donation drives, etc. I hate that argument. Anyway, the simple point here is that the nanocores are not creating a pay-to-win situation. We're going to reach a point where you just can't keep creating new nanocores. We're going to start cycling some of the old ones. I have been talking to the devs about this. What is the plan for this? Because it's not something you can just keep adding. There has to come a point where actually you're going to have to recycle some of the old ones. You're going to have to redo some of the old ones. Could you slow this down? Can we change the system? How do you make this more sustainable? We'll see. Knives Legato. How will the Orca compare to the Covetor 2 in yield? 50% better for its own mining. Head hits the desk. In EVE Online, says HR Department, the Rorqual has a panic function. This is the one we talked about earlier. Panic standing for Pulse Activated Nexus Invulnerability Core. It's a function to protect the ship and nearby allies from incoming fire while help arrives. Basically, you press the big red button, you and your fleet become completely immune to all forms of damage for 2 whole minutes. At the end of those 2 minutes, you become vulnerable again. You can't warp away, you can't do anything in those 2 minutes. It's just we can't be destroyed for 2 minutes. It gives help 2 minutes to arrive. Fortunately, Lancelot says the current version does not have this mechanism and there will currently no plans to add it, but later we will focus on player feedback as well as its survivability data. Freaking good. This needs to be the thing. Miners need to be vulnerable because those ships need to occasionally get blown up so that the very same miners actually have some ships to build. Ultimately, as they've talked about earlier, one of the biggest problems in this game isn't even necessarily insurance, it's the fact that people's ships do not get blown up. When safe farming players are the majority and players willing to risk losing their ships become a minority, it will eventually lead to oversupply. That is exactly why the panic button is not on the Rorqual at this point in time. Table flip, will we be getting ice mining soon, or is it in the development plan? No plans for now. Basically, you would also have to have ships that need ice mining materials to create, which currently there aren't. So that's going to be a major thing where they have to go back and actually change how some of the ships are created, or they're going to have to add new ships that just use ice mining materials. It's a complicated thing to add. I'm almost concerned that we're a little bit too far in for ice and gas mining to ever actually be a thing, although gas mining, actually, in fairness, is more for building things like implants and stimulants, so gas mining could come, and maybe we'd get ice mining down the line for something very specific, but goodness knows what. Sandbridge, will there be any new ways of getting planetary resources? Increasing the ore output and increasing things are all very well and good, but still we're bottlenecked by planetary production. Well, yes, says Landstar. In the current version, planetary products are indeed bottlenecks in common industrial processes, but at the same time, this is also a barrier of advantage for many sovereign legions. And we will not adjust it in the short term. In the long run, if there is more imbalance between planetary production and mineral production, we will use other methods to adjust. Rather than increasing the amount you get through planetary production, reducing the amount on blueprints seems a better way forward. Although, in fairness, I think that's fine. I think having this as a thing is fine. We need these kind of consumption barriers, and I think adding more mineral barriers would be a good thing, but reducing the ISK barriers to compensate. Demon, thanks for working on improving game quality instead of quantity. Yes, big thumbs up. Other than bigger ships and more mats, what other things do you have in mind to help industrial players? There will be some adjustments to the refresh rate and ore content of existing ore belts and compressed ore belts, more ores, primarily serving high mining volume industrial capital and mining fleets. I think if you're going to be adding more ores like this, especially to serve these ships, we really need belt rats. Otherwise, it just becomes a huge growing issue that compounds itself. Anyway, that brings us to the end of this episode. Those are the questions for the second dev AMA. I think we've got some interesting insight into what's coming, a good understanding of where the devs want to go with this. I still disagree with a lot of this, but time will tell. When is this update coming? We don't know. The question was asked and ignored every time, I think because the devs don't want to, just nail themselves down on a specific time. They said late May, updates are always on a Wednesday. That would insinuate either the 18th or the 25th. I feel the 25th is the more likely one, but I said the same with the April balance update. I went for the later date and they actually just dropped it a week early. So I think if you're trying to plan for the 18th, but accept that it probably will actually be the 25th. It'll be one of those two. Yeah, we'll see. Watch Benzie be wrong again. Anyway, folks, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. It is a Saturday, so I am picking today one of you folks from the last week, one of the comments from the last week, to win a month of Combo Omega. So make sure you are checking to see if there's a notification where I've replied and asked for your details. Anyway, folks, good luck with that. Thank you for watching right the way through to the end on this one. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. Otherwise, happy sailing, see you in New Eden, and I'm going to go die of man flu. Hopefully I have a video up by Monday. Happy sailing, folks.